Welcome to this week's episode of Curiosity Uncovered. Today we're going to talk about chromatography. Now, you might have heard a lot about chromatography on some of your favorite police shows like NCIS or CSI or any of those that incorporate forensics into the police procedural. So we're going to get a good explanation of what chromatography is, and we're going to even do a quick experiment on how it works. So our quick experiment. All of this high-tech lab equipment that I have here. I have a beaker, I have water, I have a coffee filter. So you can do this at home. This is probably something, maybe you've already done an experiment like this at home. And I'm going to cut out a strip of a coffee filter. That's kind of straight. And then I am going to take a washable marker. And it's important to use a washable marker for this experiment because our mobile phase, or the phase that is moving, is water. Okay, so I have taken my sample. My sample is going to be this black Rose Art washable marker. And we want to figure out what colors go into black ink. So we're going to take it and we're going to put it into our chromatography tank, is what we're going to call this. And we just want to put it to where, there you go, it touches the water. I'm just going to kind of fold it over a little bit so it'll stay in place. You don't want to put your dot in the water. Your water should stay clear the whole entire time we're doing this experiment, because what's going to happen is the water will move up the filter paper by a process called capillary action. So as it moves, it will engage with our sample, and it will capture our sample, and the sample will move with the water. So this is called paper chromatography. There's another way to do this. It's called thin layer chromatography, where you use glass plates and they're coated with a silica slurry. So that's another way of doing this. And in both of those cases, our stationary phase is the paper or the glass plate, and our mobile phase is the liquid. So chromatography always has two components. It always has a stationary phase, which is where our sample is, and a mobile phase, which allows our sample to move across our stationary phase. So what are we trying to do? Where we're taking a mixture and we're trying to separate it out into each of its different components. So any type of unknown that we might be looking for. There's a white powder and we want to know, is that white powder dangerous? Is it something that if we took it, would it make us sick or give us a negative reaction? So what we can do is normally we would take the white powder, we would dissolve it into a liquid, and there's two different ways that we can use it chromatographically speaking. So this is called liquid chromatography. This is an LC column, okay? So you can see it right here, little stainless steel tube. Our sample will be a liquid. We'll take a syringe, inject it into the injection port, and it will be picked up by a mobile phase. And that sample is going to be picked up in our buffer, move across the column. Inside the column, it's packed with little teeny tiny beads that are coated with different chemicals. So depending on what type of column you use, depends on what type of chemicals are inside, which will react with your sample. And again, as it moves across, it's going to separate into its components, and then it'll come out over here. Right? Another way that we can do chromatography is we can use a column like this. This is called gas chromatography. So the same thing, we're going to take our sample, it's going to be dissolved in a liquid, and we're going to inject it into what's called the injection port. The injection port is going to be super hot, so like 300 degrees. Okay, think like hot, like oven hot, like you're baking cookies hot, right? And this column is going to sit inside of an oven. So we're going to keep the column nice and hot. What's going to happen is that drop of liquid is going to vaporize. It's going to turn into a gas. So this is our stationary phase. Our mobile phase is going to be helium. That helium is going to pick that sample up, and the gas is going to push it down the column. As it moves through the column, it is going to travel through here, and then it's going to separate out into each one of the components of that mixtures. Let's take one more quick peek and see how great our very simple chromatography is going Okay, so we saw our black ink, so we can see some red down here. Right here in the middle, I'm starting to pull a little bit of yellow, and then there's the blue. So if we let it run a good bit longer, we might get greater separation. But this is just a quick example of what chromatography looks like and one that you can play around with at home. So thanks for spending some time with us today on Curiosity Uncovered.